Hello, welcome to another episode of AI Ranch. My name is Evalds Urtans, PhD researcher and entrepreneur. And today with me I have Jekaterina Macuka, who is the lawyer and public official who currently serves as a director of Data State Inspectorate of Latvia. And she is also a member of European Data Protection Board. And she has been working in Ministry of Justice and even in Patent Office, so really experienced public official. We recently met in a conference where we had a little bit of debate about GDPR regulation of some of the famous cases here around the Baltics, and really happy that you agreed to meet me in person, and would be really excited to see all of these insights in AI and data regulation. And you might be the best person to talk with about that, so welcome.
Thank you, and good afternoon.
I know you have been working as a lawyer and also in a judiciary direction. What is your experience of using AI and in that field? How do you see this is affecting that field?
For me, at the moment, I use sometimes ChatGPT or Copilot, but for me, it's a good helper. If I want to search for some information and find for some information, it's good. A second one, if you want to have some fun presentation and beautiful presentation with the pictures, it's as well a quite good helper. As well, for me, in the questions what I do not know, and maybe it's not more connected to the law, but as I am as well director of the organization, I'm responsible for a lot of the things, how to deal with people, how to organize people work, how to make the strategy of organization, and etc. And I'm a lawyer, so I have enough, I would say, knowledge in this. But then, if I need to organize some workshop in our organization, or to say, okay, I need some decision or opinion from the people, but how do you get it from them? Maybe for some game, or maybe with some additional tools, and then I ask ChatGPT, and he makes me plan how we can organize the seminar, how we can give a workshop, what would be the task of people, what would be my main questions, and etc. and etc. So I think that this is a very good tool. Sometimes, if you talk about the using it and searching for the court decisions or etc., at the moment it still have their flaws, and sometimes it likes to imagine cases. When you read them, once I had this case when I searched for some case, and I thought maybe I will ask ChatGPT, do they have a cases on data protection and children protection or something like this? And he gave me the case, and I read it, and I said, very good, very logical. I would do the same in this situation, and judge decided the same. But then I look at the number of the case, and it was 2018 year, and I said, okay, it's quite old case. And normally I know some of these cases, but about this I haven't heard. And I start to search in the database of the European Court of Human Rights, and there is no such a case. So he mentioned it. But as well, I think that for the IE, you have to know how to work with it. First of all, if you do not want him, if you want him to draw a picture, you have to switch off this imagination. So then you will get beautiful pictures. But if you want some court decisions, then you have to switch off this imagination and write him correctly. If you do not find it, please write me that you do not find it. Because what he does, he wants to help you. So if you search for this, I will give it to you.
Yeah. By the way, it is some of the core ways how AI is trained. It is trained with this thing, it's called reinforcement learning, where humans rate the answers. This is good answer, bad answer. Not actually, it's not really trained at the end as the question answer, but just good or bad. So, and it motivates the model to give you what you want, basically. So anytime you will ask something that humans might not like, it will not respond in that way. For example, if you ask any large language model that will my job be replaced, it will always respond no, your job is safe, and so on. So it is, like you say, a bit trained inside there. Yeah.
Yeah, and as well, I see as well how he trains from my answers, like, and from my demands. He learns what I want from him, like, and that's why for some chats I do not delete them, because I like him to know our history, context, what I was searching and what I was doing, and yeah, sometimes it's very funny. And one of my colleagues always said, sometimes he doesn't understand me, and I'm like very angry on him, and I say, no, and then I understand it's technology, it's not the people, but I still feel emotions.
That's powerful that you have emotional connection with AI even. But the thing is also keep in notice just practically. I have met people who say that I speak with ChatGPT and it gets stupider, like dumber responses. But it's actually what you say, like if you start asking dumb questions, it has the context and then it will respond in a dumb way to you. So you kind of, but there's a cure to that. Like remember to always, delete sessions, start new sessions, make these temporary sessions. Then it works the best, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, but then this is the question for people, even the game for people, like, some toy, and I will ask him like questions, what do you feel?
Yeah.
I don't care what he feels, honestly.
Yeah.
I want to get my answers and use this technology.
Exactly.
And in this case, ask them those questions that he can help you, and not some question that I do not need it for your work for your existence.
Also, don't write ChatGPT, hello, how are you doing today? This will make answers worse for sure. I have a separate video how I explain how this works. So, but in terms of the experience and what you have seen, how the technology has been changing over years, like, do you see any way how AI could replace, for example, judges? In Latvia, at least in Europe, we have huge queues, right? If I want to take my case to the court, it sometimes takes many years. So maybe it's a sort of way how to solve this. What do you think?
I think that, okay, it's not now. There have to be passed some years, but I think that it is possible to give some cases to the AI, and it would be resolved much more faster. The questions here would be, and I trust that technology could do it after maybe 5 years. But questions here will be, one, trust of the society. Does people really will trust to these decisions? And that will be depends on how they will trust AI. And second thing that we have to think, even if these decisions are made by AI and they're very correct, it have to be possibility to revise it with the people. So you have to have this possibility to get revising on these court decisions by people. So, and it as well, I think that will gain trust. Maybe after 5 years, many people will ask to revise it, but if they will see that all these decisions are correct and good, they will get the trust in the technology. And of course, there would be very different, cases are very different. If we're talking about maybe some divorce cases or childcare cases, these kind of cases at the moment, I would say, could not be given to the AI, because you need these ethical questions, you need to discover its moral and some real humanity thing. But the question which depends on the company's work, on the legal agreements, is it correct, is it not? All of the things could be done by AI, I think.
I like that you give exact examples. So like the company disputes, right? The like invoices, whatever, agreements, right? That's good, I think. And in the real courts, you also have appeal process, right? So maybe like it's just that you have some civil cases, and then the AI does the first decision, and if you don't agree, do the appeal, right? Maybe some will agree, right?
Maybe, but as well, it's not like if as well. I said that this is a trust. Now I think that if you will say to ordinary people in Latvia that AI will resolve your case, no, I do not want. But what AI
But maybe
as well,
someone would like it. Maybe
maybe.
if you say, wait 3 years or get your decision in 1 week. So
Maybe,
yeah.
but I think as well that AI could be helpful for the judges to look through the documents, to have assessments, to have, for example, some small reports from the documents, and this will help as well to reduce the time.
Yeah, so we going to the data direction, which is important. So and actually, this is good example what you give. So there were cases in America where they I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, they tried AI helper systems for judges, and I think it was for early parole, or I think something not really like a criminal decision, just some assistance to early release or something, and they actually turned it off because they discovered that. In most cases, the AI was predicting in favor of white skin colored rather than black skin. But it is kind of very tricky, and we want to see your perspective, because me as an AI researcher, I look at things not from maybe often from perspective of how the society thinks, but from data. From data perspective, if I have like criminal records and early paroles for, let's say, 10 last years, and in data there is actually high correlation that maybe the black criminals do again more crime, so then the AI would exactly do what they see in the data. So but then what is actually biased there? Is it like that we want as a society to have different reality from reality? How it actually works?
I think that question is because not more, it's like bias in one certain case. If we talk about the judiciary as such, then when judge get the case, he does not get the case on about the whole society and part of the society. He gets the case on this certain person, and maybe this certain person even is a part of the group where predictably there are like more people who is likely to do some offenses or something like this. But you have to look on this certain person, and maybe this certain person in these certain situations is not in fault. And if you look at this case with the stereotypic thing, then you start to discriminate this person, because in the law we have that you have to have equal treatment in an equal situation. So this is the part where judges needed and where people intervention needed. And I think that this is one of the flaws now on the IE, and I do not know how to get rid of it, but in this case, I can agree with you. Many people said that in many systems that was elaborated by big companies in the USA, the problems was of the discrimination, mostly white, black people, women, men, and etc. and etc. But what it is, IE learns from us.
Yeah.
IE learns from the information that he has, and unfortunately, our world are not so equal and are not so honest. And for example, but that's, we like people, we try to fight this discrimination.
Yeah, so the AI is not at fault that it gives the prediction.
He learns from us, but the problem is that he learns good and bad as well. And in this case, I think it's for the AI researchers or developers of the models, how you can get rid of these negative flaws. Because we also, at work, we made the experiment on the AI, and we wrote there that for the ChatGPT, like, please draw out the picture of the president in the democratic country with the democratical things. In this country is very have their constitution and etc. and etc. So what picture he gave to us, and that's how you know for what he's trained. Like one person, one president. Of course, they all were men, and one of them was looking as Obama, and another one something in the middle, Trump and Biden. But all the picture was like based on American. Yeah.
Generate president that looks like Trump and Biden.
And a little bit, you can see it, like something from Trump, something from Biden. And but okay, next we wrote him like, okay, president, man or woman, like female and or male. He still draw male. And then we wrote like please draw the female. And the first picture was still the man. And only then, when we changed all that, like she, and then he gave a woman.
Yeah, you're
but
right.
then we see that, for example, for the ChatGPT, the trend for the in American history, there was all presidents were the men. Even if you took the history of the countries in Europe, most presidents are men, not women. So that's why he thinks, okay, the most of them are men, then we go for the men. But from the equality of the people, nowadays, women as well could be the president. And if we do not teach him how to get rid of this past discriminational examples, we will and we will rely on him. I think that's why we can have problems with the next future discrimination as well. So for me, this is the main thing that we have to think about the AI.
I like your example. I think actually it's really fun to look back. There's this alternative to ChatGPT, Gemini, Google Gemini, and maybe you remember this very beginning. It was about half a year ago or so when they just released the image generation, and then it was like a scandal because they were generating the American historical figures, and they were all black women or something. So it was like total nonsense, right? So in the sense that even in the future, if something is different, you don't change the past because of the future. So it was a great example of trying to do what you said, like to change the way how model works, but they kind of overshoot it in the very, very opposite direction. So it's a not easy job at all.
Yeah, but this is why I think that AI now as technology was developing, and I think that now we have to think how we will develop it. Because for me, AI's technology is very natural. Every technology is natural. When Nobel created dynamite, he never thought that people will be killed. He created it to allow people to build the roads in the mountains. So AI is the same. We can use it in a good way, we can use it in the bad way. What would have to be demanded from the developers is still to think in the good way so it does not do harm, and that he does not take the past mistakes from the society and from the people to the future.
Yeah, these will be very, very difficult problems to solve. But I want to talk about the core competencies that you have, which is very, very important, especially for me when I'm working with AI products and many others who are trying to do these AI products. And this is the first area is related to GDPR, which is this data regulation and the Data Regulation Act. And so maybe for listeners who don't know actually what is GDPR, maybe there's somebody from America, maybe you can explain why we have it at all and what it is.
You know, even in America, many people know what does mean GDPR.
Yeah, but
This is a very famous 4 letters, but GDPR in the EU, in European Union, is a law and regulation which sets I would say the scope where and how we can process personal data. And in Europe, personal data is a part of the human rights. So I have a right on my personal data. I have right that they would be stored and collected and processed only in the cases when there is my consent, or when there is a law, or when there is other legal basis which is mentioned in the GDPR. For many people and many companies, GDPR is a beast. When this law was adopted, many companies said that it will stop their business and everything will stop. But now it's like 6 years. Nothing has stopped. We still are living. Everything and the information systems develops and AI develops. So it means that GDPR is not so big beast. But GDPR was needed at that time as well to put the balance between the technology and possibilities of technology and people, like more humanity and more because personal data, we have our name, surname, picture, as well our habits, our education, and even our thinking in many cases. It's our personal data. And GDPR was created to maybe allow us to be controller of this data, to understand who what does with my data, and as well understand our decisions. Because in many cases, still now, people for example, when they order some hotel in booking and to go to Italy, afterwards they open the Google and then they see the car rent in Italy and say, oh, it's miracle how the Google knows it. But you have to understand the principles working of the internet, of the browser, or of the companies. And the GDPR was created as well to allow people to know more, and to force sometimes companies to say, okay, we take this data from you, and that's why you get this advertising, or you get these proposals. And then people would more understand how this technological and digital work works. And GDPR is created to protect people, maybe from their bubbles, from the unjustified decisions and opinions. I can understand that in many cases for companies it's quite hard to implement it, and companies as well are afraid of the fines because GDPR contains quite big fines. But as well, if you do not fine, so sometimes in countries you cannot as well ensure the enforcement, because if there was no fine, okay, we can presume that everybody are very good persons and always do as they said to do, but reality says that it's not like this. So that's why GDPR has this scope of rights, that fines, but for me this is a very technology neutral document.
So by the way, you're saying that 6 years and still things develop, so it means that you're saying it's not really prohibiting business development with the personal data involved. It is just regulation. It's not prohibiting, so in some sense, but then do you have the cases, and actually is it reality that you can have, you know, these GDPR checkboxes? So I can have a checkbox, I can have the policy, and I could write in the checkbox, I don't know, like I can sell all of your data to whatever, and then you checkbox, and now it's clear to do whatever you want. Is it actually possible to do that?
No, it's not possible to. Okay. It's possible to do. Yeah. Of course, company can do it, and there was as well a lot of the funny cases when companies wanted to check how their clients reads the rules and privacy rules on all of the things. And there was one, I think, gaming website who wrote on their privacy policy that by agreeing to this privacy policy, you are giving us your own soul. Oh. And for the 1 week, I think there was like 200 or 2,000 people who consent to everything and so gave them their souls.
GDPR policy.
And this is in some cases that many people does not read these privacy policies. They do not like. They say
was
nothing
was
to
it
hide.
A joke? Did you act on this, or how did you know?
No. It was some American company. Right. It is other company, not our. But it was not in reality. Of course, they just have done it to show that many people does not read it, and sometimes it is the problem that these regulations become more and more bigger, and that's why we say, like, you cannot ask people to agree to privacy policy, but you have to put it in your website, and then if I want to know, I will read it, and that's all. If I do not want to know and I don't care, I will not read it. But for the consent, of course, company can do everything and saying, like, you consent with this, but according to the GDPR, this consent have to be freely given, have to be understandable, and you have to as well, if person asks you why you need it, and as well for the consent, there always have to be no button. And nowadays, many companies still does not have no button.
I remember
it's like agree, and that's all.
Yes. If you don't agree, you cannot use.
Yeah. so it means that this is not consent, because if you use it, for example, if the usage of some services, then you obligatory need the data from the data subject, that your legal basis from the data from the GDPR point of view would be legal obligations, legal contract. Then be frank and say to people that it's legal contract, it's not your consent. But many companies, they still think that consent is the best one, because everybody consents, and then he signed it. But from the GDPR perspective, there is a lot of other legal bases that companies can do and can use, and which is much more better than consent. But I think for them it's easier. He checked, it's good.
Yeah, but is it really legal? Do that? Okay, not selling soul, but basically, if presume the user actually reads it and there is written, we will sell all of your address data, emails, everything to other companies for our benefit, for advertisement, whatever. Is it legal?
Like for the advertising, it is possible, and as a data subject, if I really have the choice, and for the advertising, it have to be different. It have to be divided, the usage of the services. For example, if I want to have a client card in some shop, and once what I want to use buy something from the shop, and another one, if they said, okay, if you agree, then we will send to your email our commercial proposals, or maybe our partner commercial proposals. It doesn't mean that they will sell your data, but they will give email as well for the other commercial companies. And if I agree, for example, if I'm as a person, sometimes it's not so bad. I do not know if I have some hobby, I don't know, cars, or I'm interested in IE researches, and they say, okay, we will send you information on all new articles or all new tools on IE. Why not? You do not need to research it, search it in the internet, you will get it. Or, I don't know, I'm a woman, I like shoes. I want to get this notification when there will be some sales in Jimmy Choo shop. So if I really have a choice as a person, then I do this choice and this is okay. But if there is no choice and I have only agree, then it's not a legitimate consent.
So we've been working for many years with contact centers, large as well. So when I talk with them, they explain me the time before GDPR that they were able to target much better the audiences, which they call now they have to call random numbers or something.
Yeah.
So is it possible, as you say right now, somebody checks there, okay, we will use your data for selling shoes, and then some contact center, call center have like new shoes offers, and they can buy these lists of phone numbers. Can I do that?
Normally, it's not. It's worked a little bit different. If I'm a company and I produce something, like I produce shoes, let it be like this, and I want to sell my shoes, and I have a client's database and database of these emails or phone of my clients who agree that I will send them commercial advertising. What I do as a company, I get the contract with the call center and say them that I will give you my database and you will use it to call and to propose people my products. And in this case, they do not sell; they use their own databases.
But can I do this for other companies? Like if, for example, shoes, right? And then there is maybe some other clothing items, right? Hats.
Then you had to get the consent from person for the other company as well. So it means like if you have consent from the person to send your own advertising, it's one thing. But then if in the same like agreement and you wrote it quite correctly and understandable that there will be company number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it have to be right to data subject say, okay, for these companies 3, I like it. And you can give them data to them and send me information. But for these 4, I do not like them. For this, I do not want.
Okay.
In this
so
case,
you need to do that.
Yes. In this case, company can do it.
Can I just put like a call center that sells everything?
No.
Can I do that?
No, because in most cases, the call center, he just... he's from the perspective and the terminology of the GDPR, the call center is a processor. He does what he is demanded from. He does not have most cases data because we had the checks on call centers 2 years ago in Latvia in data protection in our Inspectorate. So most of them does not have their own database. They get these databases from the companies, and these companies gets this consent from their clients. And in most cases, they call, for example, sometimes, now it's not so popular, but before there was telecommunication companies who called you and said, like, we have a new tariff or new proposal, do you want it? It was not the company who called you, it was a call center, because company hired the call center to do it. Because in most cases, even big companies, they do not have their own call centers. They hire the call centers, and call centers calls other people. So, but if the company does not have client database, but they still want to do advertising, then they use these randomly numbers to maybe try to get the consent from person saying, okay, we call you first time, do you agree that we will call you next time and propose the products of this company? And if person says, yes, I agree, then the company puts it in the database and says this was a consent.
So it is definitely not that easy as it sounded in the very beginning. But from the other perspective, why do Americans don't have it?
American have it. American have. There is I think some of the amendment in the Constitution which protects private life. They have privacy laws, and I think that now more than 20 states have their own privacy law, including the California. They proceed with the privacy law, and in many cases, this privacy law is very similar to the GDPR. In America. We have to say that America and Europe have very, first of all, I would say, different understanding what does it mean personal data processing and protection. For the Europe, this is a human right. And as it's human rights, I cannot sell it, I cannot give it to anything because it's my right, like right to life, right to health. In America, data, personal data, is not the part of the human rights. Personal data is more like consumers, asset consumers' rights. And that's why in America, if you just collect data and store it, it doesn't mean nothing. But if you start to use it, like propose something or have some decisions, then they say, okay, then you start processing. In Europe, even if you collect the data and just store it, it's already processing because it's part of your human rights. So this is the very big distinguish, and that's why in America this collection of data in many cases is justified, and in Europe they say even that for collection of data you need to have some legal basis.
Yeah. This I have not yet studied in detail the American approach, but it seems very interesting what you're saying. That they have similar approach to many things.
And as well, for America, they have one other clause. I do not know from where it is, but mostly for them, if data are public, then you can do whatever you want with them. In Europe, even if data are public, you can use them only for the purpose why they are public. It doesn't mean that if somebody published data, you can do whatever you want for them. In America, if you published your data, like Facebook, on the Facebook, your name, surname, and a picture, I can collect it in the database and use it.
So yeah, I have a photo of you having some shoes, and then when you get your phone number, then somebody calls to sell you the shoes. That would be
And if my phone number, and for example, if I publish somewhere my phone number in America, it would say, okay, you published it, then that's why I can use it.
Did you ever had the situation when somebody called you to sell something where you were not consented?
I have had some calls, and when I ask them where you have my number, and they say, no, we do not have your number, it's just an ordinary random number. But if honestly, sometimes I even wanted to get some number, so get some calls. For example, there was very modern, a couple years ago, when telecommunication company, they called you and said, oh, you are an one operator, we can give you the better price, come to us. And I always waited when they will call me and I can get the better prices, but they never called me.
All of the call centers have put your number in the blacklist.
Maybe.
Because if they call you, then they will have
No,
problems.
but I think that the most funny thing that I have with the phone calls was, but there was these people who tries to cheat on everybody and get the money, and they called me and they said, you know, scammers, yeah. They called me and say, hello, we are calling from the European Data Protection Board, and I said, yeah, really? and at that time, I was in Brussels on this European Data Protection Board meet, and then like, are you sure you are calling me from the European Data Protection Board? And say, yes. And I said, okay, but where are you? Like, we are in Brussels and our head in Austria. And this was true because the EDPB meets in Brussels, and at that time, head was Austrian data protection head. And of course, and they started to talk that my money is somewhere. So I have to give them all the passwords and etc. It's like, okay, and it will be safe because we are European board. And I said, yeah, okay, thank you very much.
That's highly unusual coincidence.
Yeah, but it was very funny.
But that is really great. So there is this case where we started our discussions regarding this large telecom here in Latvia that actually got the fine. It's like over 1 million euro. It's not a small fine. And the case was, as I read, from 2020. It was something dealing with their television platform, some offers. Can you explain, because from the side, just reading from it seems one of those cases where you have some situation for everybody to get scared, be serious about it, but it's not. Was it actually that important?
I would say for me it was important and serious, but. First of all, maybe when we talk about the fines and the number of the fines, GDPR prescribes that the fines could be from 0 till 20 millions and from 0 till 4% of the turnover of the company. So, and this progressive approach was because the companies are very different and the turnovers are very different. And if, for example, there is one company whose turnover is 1,000 in a year and another whose turnover is 1 million, if they do the same breach of the regulation and the institution would put the same fine, for example, 100 euro, then for the company whose turnover is 1,000, 100 would be quite big. But for the company whose turnover is 1 million, 100 nothing, like. And that's why there was this system implemented in the GDPR that you pay the fine according to your turnover. Yeah. And if you look at the TAT, their turnover was at that time, I think, up to 300 millions. So that's why the number, if for example, if the same breach would be done by the company who had less turnover, the fine as well would be smaller. So because the aim of the GDPR is not to make the company insolvent, but to pay this like fair amount of fine that is payable for the company. So from one point of view, 1,200,000, it's big number for the but then we have to look at the turnover of the company. And even like if you would put, I don't know, 1 million euros fine for the Facebook, it would be nothing. Yeah. So that's why this fine numbers. For the TAT, in that case, for the TAT case, they provided the service. You as a person could get the television, but they provided this service in such way. So you could get an agreement with the company before they get in the service, but company provided in that way that I could get the agreement on your name and you would be paying, but I will be watching. So it means that the system, which was in electronic system, what was created, you had to put there the personal code, but this personal code could be different within your name and surname or even email. So it means that if I know your personal code, I could get the agreement on these services.
How can I sign it? Because there should be some legal way to sign it.
Yeah, but it as well was processed in the company. They send you on the email the agreement, but they switched on the service at spot, even not waiting for the assignment and agreement. And at that moment, that case we had, there was half a year, the agreement was not signed, the service was provided, and the bills was sent to the person. Even without even without the assignment of the contract, and that's why we looked at the process. And in that case, we, as well as the institution, we looked at the process in the company, how they created it. And the problem, I think, the biggest problem for us was that. Company, even before they implemented the service, they had the impact assessment, and they even saw that this is a risk, but they didn't mitigate the risk. And so that's why as well our fine was that you as
so
a
do you say that they knew that something
this is
like
possibility.
this could happen, that they
Yeah,
could
but
send
they said
invoices?
okay, but then people because they said okay, but it's not our fault, it's other people's fault. But even if it's other people's fault, if you provide some service, you have to think about the service, and you have as well to have this security measure, not to give the possibilities to other cheating or doing something unlawful. So that was the point of the company, that this system on the service as such was implemented in the breach in GDPR. And another thing, that company as well was quite aware that this is possible, but haven't done anything to get rid of it.
Have you tried to warn them before, like, or was it just like, okay, we have a problem, fine?
Like in that cases, we had before we started the investigation on the fine, we as well wrote the letters for the company asking them how you do with the services, but they react in their way. They answered our letters. So, but then, as well, in that case, we had another case with the same company when they had only warning, and it's in the same year came the application on this case. So it was already second case in a year what we started against the company. If we do it in the second time, we do not go to this first consultant, because we already warned you in the one case and this is the second one. So that's why as well we started investigation, and we put as well the fine.
Okay. So I think it's nice to clarify what's actually happening, and maybe also that this case, what you're describing, it's very different from the many cases where AI companies now face really significant struggles when to implement GDPR, because now maybe these kind of cases then create a little bit of fear, which might be good, but at the same time very different of like applying AI, for example, for document checking or something. Completely different seems from what you're telling, but because of something like that these data protection lawyers even maybe don't know exactly what happened, they are like over on the edge and trying to do things. Do you see that as well, or?
Maybe, but like in this case, because as well as Inspectorate, we publish all our decisions. So it's if somebody wants to know.
Yeah, but people are lazy.
Yeah. But they have ChatGPT, you know.
Yeah, they should use.
They can use it to get some small reports. But I think that the biggest problem with the IE, maybe it's a problem. Which connects with the personal data protection, is a training of IE systems and training based on the personal data. And in this case, you have to find this legal basis, how you can get this data. For example, if there's health data, in my case, I think that mostly you can get the agreement then and consent of person. Then I agree that my health data will be used as well for the training IE. But if there is no consent, the company have to find this legal basis. It could be legitimate interest, but then in legitimate interest they have to have this as well risk-based approach. And sometimes I think companies, when they say, okay, you can use legitimate interest, but you have to have this test, and they say, no, we do not know what does it mean, this test of legitimate interest, we will not do it. But sometimes companies, before they start to do IE, they have to do their homework, and this homework maybe to think about as well implementation and using of the personal data. Because what I have seen in the practice, it's like we have idea, we start to do it, we create something, and then okay, there was GDPR personal data, what we have to do with this? So I think that as well, it's attitude from the companies. You have to think about this data protection and use this data protection by default. And that's why if you have some idea, you need this personal data for the training, then okay, how can I get them? And there could be problems in some cases.
I know one company. This would be great expert opinion here. If that company is watching, they would be really interested. So hello, Yanis. So anyway, the thing is so important stuff. So there is a alternative for authentications, right? There is eyes, right? There's a biometric, all sorts of authentications. And to train these models, you actually need data, right? So imagine if I have this authentication with my hand, right? So, and many services actually very interested in that because they are currently paying a lot of money to Apple Pay and all sorts of like banking and so on. But to do this, we need this data, right? And we probably need to collect data from similar ethnicity and background. So is it actually, can companies somehow collect data from people like legally?
For the consent, if people agree? If people agree, yes.
So, but this will be, imagine, so the company will use this to train recognizing other people's hands, right? Other people's identities, and it will be used in many kind of scenarios.
Yeah, but this is as well case when you train model, and this is how I question of the developers of the IE, because how I understand IE, for the training model, you train the IE to think, to understand, like for example,
recognize
patterns, yes. And afterwards, when you use it for other people, when for example it's already used in his homes or somewhere else, it uses patterns, not the personal data that it collected for the training. And that's why from this perspective of this GDPR, the first things you have to collect the data, an amount of data where you can train the model. And this is, as I mentioned, if you're Apple, for example, you first of all collect them for the purpose of service, your own services, because I want to open my phone. And then they use this legitimate interest saying like, to provide you proper service, we will as well train model which will recognize your work. If you're not Apple, if you are like startup, you do not have this data, so you have to get it from there. Where you can get it? Like government, no, does not have this data. For the legitimate interest, you do not have services to provide people.
Yeah, you don't have services.
Yeah, you do not
people.
have services. So the consent is the only one. But the question for the consent from the practical point of view, I would say it's quite difficult. Because so how you will go? Okay, you can put it in the internet if you want to be the part of the developing IE, like on maybe there will be some persons who just will do it voluntary, but mostly will not do it. So what you have to do, or you have to find some company which has already this data for their own services and ask them to buy your product or to be the part of the developer of your product, and then you can get it from them on the legitimate interest.
Yeah, but this is like then this data processor, and but at that time like like this is something new, right? There's no such processes. Nobody actually collects like so it means that you need to somehow collect it, and as you say, this is not providing direct service to those people. So can you do this in Europe at all?
You can do on the consent basis, but it would be very, I would say, very costly. But this is as well, but I would say that this is problem not of the regulation of the GDPR, this is a problem as well of the implementation, how you collect it, where you will get this data, because nobody have them. And if you want to collect them from the scratch, then you can use only consent.
But still, my question is that this consent is enough, yeah?
if the person can say no.
Even if I'm not providing you any service.
Yeah, but you would be, if you write to a person, it's like many person participates in the researches. It's as well your consent, for example, in the health research or some report surveys and etc. It's my consent, I agree with this, and experiments and workshops, and this is the same. If I agree, and you explain me as a company that we will use your fingerprints to train the system, and you are open to the person, why not? But the problem is normally that many companies try to not be open. They try to get the give us your fingerprint and you will win the lottery. And there's nothing about the training IE model. And I do not know why companies do it, because in many cases maybe a lot of people would say, okay, I agree, why not?
Yeah,
if it's a good purpose.
Don't be sneaky about it.
I think that it's better to be open, and then people will be more understandable as well. Because normally it's like in many cases companies are sneaky. Then there is one person who says, yeah, but you promised this, but you didn't do this. Why you are like cheating on us? And then people, oh, you are cheating on us, and then starts the fuss, no trust, possible breaches, and all of the things. So if the company would be more open with the people, and that's why this, GDPR as well prescribes to, so the controller have to be transparent. So if you're open, if you describe person that we will use your data for this and this and this.
But is it any different from collecting? So I'm collecting handprints, but I could collect your phone numbers without giving any service and get consent that I will.
But you need the purpose.
Yeah, but
what you say if you, because for the fingerprint.
Purpose is to collect the database for targeted very good offers, and I will then sell this to other companies who will then call you and give you those offers.
But for the companies and for the offers, then you have to give me as a data subject number of the companies to whom you will give this data. It's what I was mentioned before.
But then this biometric stuff, then I also need to list all of the companies.
But in this biometric stuff, you use it for the train one model, and this is one company. If you would say I will give it to whole companies in the world, this would be the different thing. Then you would say as well have to, because.
So the data has been converted into model, and then I can give it. But if I give data directly, then it's a problem.
But when you convert it into and this is a question for the IE, if you converted it to the model, does it really stay there in the same, and you can as well still identify me or not?
I can.
For example, if I will give you the
handprints,
my handprints to train the model how to recognize the fingerprints, and you train this model, and still after the training, when IE works and he can recognize other fingerprints, you still can say like, give me the fingerprint of Jekaterina Macuka, and he will give me out this print?
Only if I have this reference data point. If you give your fingerprint, it will recognize. It will recognize also people.
But it will recognize those other people.
Yeah, those other as well, but you as well. But this is necessary. You understand? Like we cannot avoid it. Otherwise, we cannot build such products.
Yes, but normally it's like this. You train the model, for example, fingerprints, and for example, I'm working in the office where a company decides that we will come into the office with the fingerprints. So the model recognizes the fingerprints. So even if my fingerprints is in the model and used for the training, when I start work in the company to whom this model is not developed, even sold, and company uses it, when I put my fingerprint, I still have to be put it inside in this system from one more time or not.
Yeah, you need to reference data points. Yes.
So in this case, my question is, like, if my fingerprints was used to train the model, and I will put it, he always recognizes me, even if for example, you sell it to the UK company, and I will come to the UK's company just first time and just put the fingerprints.
No, you need the reference. So it's not exactly like you say. So there is a one step there which will connect you with your identity.
Yeah.
But I could do the same with phone numbers. I could make a model that I put in the model, give me people who like shoes. It will start generating numbers, for example, phone numbers, but it will not tell the identities on phone numbers, and that this is the way how I can sell this data to others.
But with the phone numbers, it's a little bit different thing, because if phone numbers are protected not because of the GDPR, but as well of the privacy directive. And the privacy
there's
directive,
something else.
Yeah, there's something else. And the privacy directive says that you cannot call on these phones, not because even of the data, but because you're disturbing people.
No.
And in this case, you only can call them for these numbers, for recognized numbers, if you have the agreement that they agree that you will disturb them and call them, or send them SMS. For example, in our case, e-privacy directive, it is even like older than GDPR. It was adopted in 2012, and we forgot how it was, or we didn't experience it, but in those countries they do not have this regulation. For example, I have been in Georgia until the first March last year. They didn't have this regulation, and so the person got it like 80 SMS in a day about proposals from some shops, and that's why these phone numbers will not go really from the data protection point of view. Maybe consent would be okay, but there is e-privacy directive who sets another layer.
I can get consent that I can disturb you.
In this case, you can get only, yeah, but you can get only very targeted consent for certain company, for certain products, and in your model you will not get it, because you will sell it to many companies.
It's very interesting. I need to think about this more. But towards the end, because we're running out of time, the AI Act, right? Could you explain why we need it and what it is?
In the EU AI Act, as I mentioned before, AI technology is natural technology, but it comes in our world, and I think that the main purpose of the EU regulators was to set the borders, what we allow, what we does not allow, and maybe to say before the AI is developed in such manner that we cannot influence it, set those do not harm principles. And that's why AI Act was created. That's why AI Act have this prohibited systems, high risk system, medium risk systems, or small risk systems, to say that, okay, if we are performing a small risk system, everything.
What is minimal risk system? I was trying to find any example of minimal risk. I was not able to find.
Minimal, but I think that's something that was mentioned. What is mentioned in the AI work?
What I'm telling people is, like, if you have AI recognition of cucumbers in your greenhouse, that's
it's not personal data. It's nothing.
Yeah,
yes, of course. Yes, it's small risks at all. I would say that maybe translation models as well. They are AI, but they do not have for example, we use when you use Word and we type the documents.
Grammar
spelling. It's made by AI.
So it's minimal risk.
So it's very minimal risk that something happens.
That's good. Know that.
So some of them, I would say, first of all, this is those systems who does not involve personal data, and those systems who afterwards cannot influence maybe people taking the decision on this and changing their situation. Because most systems who once went to the high risks is those systems which can influence quite a lot persons and be even harmful persons.
So if we go just quickly from the bottom, so the minimal risk, then I was surprised to learn what is in the limited risk. So in limited risk, I read that there is the deep fakes, the ChatGPT type of generative chatbots, recommendation systems. Why deep fakes is limited risk?
For the deepfakes, you can as well use them in a very good way. For example, you can, create the deepfake for the Salvador Dali, who will explain you his own art and provide you guide in his own museum, and the same for the many things. And as well, you can recreate maybe some very important event in the 3D in the museums. So it's a good things. That from other point of view, that deep fake, when they're used without the person's consent, without the person's knowing, and in order to get better reputation for persons, this is, I would say, illegal work or illegal actions by themselves, but not deep fake as such, because I think we have to look at this from the technology perspective. Deep fake technology as such does not do harm.
There is a thing. So I know quite well these technological aspects. And for example, the next step, high risk, it requires registration EU database, documentation of the data sets, user consent, but below the limited risk, so deepfakes. If I want to train deepfake of you, I need to get data of you. So, and I don't need to explain how I got your data. So
you still have to have legal basis from the GDPR to train data.
So it goes together.
Yeah. So it's and you cannot look at the IE Act separately because there is a IE Act, there's a GDPR. Okay, there is as well a Data Market Act for the big players, Data Service Act. So you have quite a lot of regulation. I would say this, even for me, it's quite difficult, and in this kind, you have to give as well a lot of the guidelines for the companies and simple or understandable guidelines how to deal with the cross regulation when we have IE, GDPR, DMA, DSA, and all these acts.
Crazy. There's so much regulation in Europe. Oh man! So I even learned about new regulation from you today. About what was the name?
E-privacy directive.
Privacy directive. Oh man!
But it's old one, you know.
So it's even before all of this. So okay, then so the high risk is for people just to know. This is related to education, hiring people. Yeah. Health. What else is in the high risk?
Law enforcement authorities and as well this all high risk systems is those systems who can influence people in a big manner. For example, if we are talking about the employment, and we started to talk about this discrimination, and if, for example, this employment system will be built with an algorithm, like saying that the man works better, so they need to be more salaried, they have to need to get the more salary than women, then this algorithm, if it's used in the employment system, it means that always the women will get less salary than a man, even if they work in the same level and in the same good. So that's why with these employment things, it influences not only my employment. If I cannot get a job, or I can get less payment job, I can have less healthcare, less education. It means my level of the life will be less. So that's why the systems is in high risk. Not, I would say, because they have an impact on the person's life.
I was thinking like you will have a very hard job because the high risk systems, right, that requires transparency of data, but the thing is that nowadays almost all of the AI works on somebody else already trained the model, then you adapt it, like for example, how you get transparency of GPT, right? Or something like that, then it becomes so difficult, right?
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. And then towards the end, the prohibited risks, I read that there is the subjective, manipulative scam systems, right? The discriminatory systems, but also face recognition, emotions, biometric categorization. So does it mean that we will not be able to sell these video cameras with the face recognition?
I would say that IE mostly thinks about the usage, and if you create such a model, and for the face recognition, the same with the emotions recognition, it gives a lot of the possibility to influence persons. If that's, you know, if you're everywhere, you have cameras with a face
But
recognition.
that's a government. But what about business?
But as well for the business.
So you check if somebody comes in your property.
If, for example, it's not like if your property, but still, even from the GDPR, face recognition is a sensitive data. It means that you have to have some legal basis for why you have to check this person, and as well you have to have the database. So I don't think that you can use it as well for your own property, but it's as well to protect maybe people from the discrimination, because if I do not know, if I once was in some bar and the bar owners think that I didn't acted correctly, and for example there's a whole face recognition system in all cafeterias and restaurants, and then restaurant says, okay, we will not
By the way,
let
this
him in.
is the case for gambling actually. Like at least in US, I might think that in Europe as well, they have these databases. When somebody goes into casinos, they have the face recognition there.
In EU, they mostly have the different ways. You have to, I think now when you go gambling, you have to have as well to show your ID. So it means that you do not recognize your by face, you recognize by the name and same.
So that's different. But still, I think this will be quite interesting and challenging time. We'll definitely need to talk more about this. I'm happy to see that your perspective is that you know, we want to make sure that everything is still we are developing these things. We are not stopping these things. It's just need to understand how to navigate all of this huge regulation.
Yeah, and I would say that we always have to think, that's why when we start to talk with you about this fingerprints, how to train, we have to understand how these models will use it. And in some cases, it would be good and it would be right that in some case model, if it's trained, it stopped uses this data and you cannot connect it with the person, so you do not identify it. Because from the personal data protection, if you cannot identify person, it's anonymized data, and then you are free from the regulation. So I think that one thing that could think in the IE development, how to make the tool to anonymize data after the training and or even some cases before the training.
Yeah, I agree. So it was really great talking to you. Really interesting examples and great insight. And definitely, if people want to find you, ask more questions, how to do that? Or you don't want them to ask questions?
No, you know, I do not give the private consultation because I'm representing the state, but in the data protection in our state inspectorate, we have the web page dvi.gov.lv, and there is a contact numbers, consultations number. So if some companies wants to have the questions how to do it or consult, they can consult us. But of course, as you mentioned for the ChatGPT, do not ask us the silly questions.
Yeah, go first ChatGPT, then to Directorate. So great! It was great meeting to you. Thank you.